So this is Danny Flexen here for Seconds
Right,
Out.
Toby.
Oh, God. You're right.
We've been joined by Topolina.
Oh, brilliant. I wouldn't have it
Okay,
any other way. This is Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Absolutely delighted to welcome back to DiBella's Digest the man himself, Lou DiBella. Lou, where have you been? How have you been?
I've had it. It's been a pretty happening and interesting time since we last spoke. But I'm fine. I'm actually doing very well.
It's been a minute, as they say. But
Mhm.
you're here, you look healthy. New York Giants are
I am.
unbeaten somehow. I guess because it's only been one game so far, but still, they weren't expected to win that game. So, I mean, it's pretty cool.
Well, I'm going to a Giant game for the first time in a long time this coming Sunday because I said to myself, if they win game one and they're actually 1-0, I'm going to go use my tickets myself as opposed to giving them away. And I'm looking forward to it. And I think I'm going to continue to go as long as I'm in town if they continue to win. But it's a new, the Giants have some new leadership, so it should be a fun year at least.
It's good. Brian Daboll winning over lapsed fans one by one. It's good to see.
And Saquon Barkley, now healthy again. So I'm looking forward to the Giants season. I'll be very satisfied. Give me something near 500. Give me an 8-9 record this year and be competitive against the good teams. Like prove that you're an NFL team. That's all I want. Be a solid NFL team. And I actually think that with the talent they have and Brian Daboll, I think that that's a realistic goal. But let's talk boxing. That's why we're here. We're here to talk boxing.
I mean, the biggest news, I suppose, in the UK this week, boxing related, has been the challenge laid down by Tyson Fury to Anthony Joshua for a showdown in December. And then Joshua's team very quickly accepting the terms, and apparently the contract was expected today. How surprised are you by this move, particularly from Joshua's side?
I'm very surprised by it in some ways because it almost like if I was Joshua, I don't know. He fought well. See, here's the interesting thing. Joshua didn't fight poorly against Usyk. He fought better than he fought against Usyk the first time, right? He just lost to a better boxer,
sure.
Right? So, but I don't think it was a bad performance. So, if he was going to win the fight and fight Fury, is it so outrageous that he lost the fight and he's going to fight Fury? No. But coming off that fight, 2 losses in a row, rushing to make year end to fight Fury on Fury's timetable when you haven't had the easiest stretch and you haven't won a fight in a while, it almost seems like a cash out to me. Like, hey, here's my last opportunity maybe my last opportunity to make this fight ever. And it's a massive fight in the UK. Like as a money fight, I'm sure that there'll be massive money in that fight in the UK. I'm sure it's a fight that's going to transcend boxing in the UK. So, I mean, I get it as a business proposition. It's not the fight I really want. I want to see Usyk against style-wise, because what I've always believed that it was the best natural matchup of styles in the division to give you World War III. Yeah. I'd love to see Joshua against Wilder because they've both proven that they can punch. They've both proven that they have limitations, and they've both proven that they have big balls. And that's a match. That's just so for me, I would rather this not go the way it seems to be going, but I understand why it is going the way it's going. And one thing also that surprises me is what happened to that big announcement of Joshua's long-term deal with DAZN. I mean, they announced it, and then Joshua's first fight was on third pay-per-view with BT. Would that be the idea? I mean, it just strikes me that it's inconsistent. Like, it looks to me like DAZN's heavily invested in Europe and in the UK. So I would think that, in my mind, I'm surprised Josh was not going the route of being paid very handsomely to fight the Dillian Whites, Chisora, the winner of Joyce, Joyce if he beats Parker, or Daniel Dubois. Like, I would think that those domestic matchups are very valuable. But I guess there's nothing of the enormity of Fury and Joshua in the UK, and that maybe everybody involved just wants to grab the cash when there's still a chance, right? There's nothing wrong with that, but it's not the fight I most want to see.
I mean, Will Harvey from 258 Management told us earlier they are floating the idea at the moment of showing the card both on DAZN and on BT Sport box office, presumably, at the same time, which I'm not sure how well that's going to work or how well those parties will work together, but that's the kind of current plan, I think.
Well, I mean, it's been done before. I mean, Showtime and HBO have done pay-per-views in unison. ESPN and Fox and ESPN and Showtime have done pay-per-views in unison. So more people will order it through BT,
sure,
I believe. But that being said, it's still, if DAZN is now in the pay-per-view business and they can make it available through DAZN, it could be a reduced fee and free to some DAZN subs around the world, depending on the market. So they could, I think they could figure out a way to make it work. If everyone was committed to getting it done, it strikes me that they can figure out a way to make it work.
Where do you think Joshua can derive confidence from, though, in the ring going into this fight? Because surely against Fury, he's fighting a bigger, better in some ways version of Usyk.
Why? I don't know. AJ, the fight lost. Danny, you froze. You there?
Yeah, I think we lost you for a minute there, Lou. Let's just go from the start of your answer to the last question about where Joshua can possibly get his confidence from for this fight.
Okay. I don't know, actually. I don't know where he could get his confidence coming off 2 losses to Usyk, fighting a guy who boxes almost as well as Usyk, except is 50 pounds, 40 pounds heavier and much stronger. So honestly, that's another reason why it just strikes me as a strange move by Team Joshua now, except for the comprehension of, since it's the business of boxing and it's prize fighting, I get that part of it. But from a standpoint of Joshua entering the fight with real confidence, I don't know how he could do that coming off the last couple of years.
Now, Lou, while I've got you here, it'd be remiss of me not to talk about.
I mean, what's Anthony's record over his last 5 fights?
He's lost 3 of the last 5, hasn't he?
I think so. Would you want to go face Tyson Fury coming off losing 3 out of 5?
I don't want to face him at all. I don't want to face him under any circumstances.
Well, I mean, I don't know that. I don't think personally Joshua would get past Deontay. I don't think Joshua would beat Usyk a 3rd time. So, and do I think Joshua beats Dillian White? Probably. Does he beat Chisora? Yes. However, nothing's for certain, and I don't know, how motivated do you get for rematches of fights you've already won? And could you have a letdown? And is it easy to foresee fighting other people, but never then getting to a Fury fight? So maybe that's the rationale. But in terms of confidence building or him being prepared to win, I don't think he's in a great moment in time to walk into that fight with a great deal of confidence.
Now, before I let you go, I do want to ask you about your winning the purse bids for Joshua Buatsi's IBF final eliminator with Jean Pascal and putting it on over here, which we're grateful for, of course, alongside Frank Warren and Queensbury Promotions. Just, I suppose, tell us how that all came about.
Well, it really came about because I go back a long way with Jean Pascal and Greg Leone. They hadn't gotten any offers for a great period of time from Matchroom for the fight. So they didn't know if they were going to get a decent offer. So they came to me and said, would you represent us, now, and would you be willing to bid on the fight? I said, I don't have a platform, so it's somewhat more difficult for me to bid on the fight. But if I believe I can bid a number that I'm comfortable enough that I can work with someone else and I would be able to make a deal at that number, then I'll bid. So I bid a number I was completely comfortable with. And I spoke to George, Warren, and Frank before the fight, before the bid. I also reached out to Sky before the bid. I also reached out to ESPN before the bid through Top Rank. I mean, to Top Rank. And I said, would you think that there's interest in this fight? And I knew that there was, within reason, interest in the fight. So I didn't really honestly expect to win the bid. I thought that I was in effect protecting Pascal and Greg Leone, who I've known since he's a kid. And but I bid a number that I thought I'd be very happy to win the bid with. So I won the bid, and then I made some phone calls. And the best situation for me in terms of working with people I was comfortable with and knowing that there was a home for the fight was through Queensberry. And I made a deal with Queensberry for the UK to do the fight in the UK, and to have it on BT Sport. And we have US, and there'll be a Canadian pay-per-view and US rights. I haven't finalized that yet.
That's awesome. I mean, it's a cracking fight. Great test for both men, particularly for Buatsi. And Pascal's known to the UK audience as well.
Look, Pascal is coming over a bit of a taint because of the positive steroid testing. I think he learned the lesson. I think he's going to be clean, and there's going to be VADA testing, so he's going to have to be. He's a beast. He's a beast. I mean, look at his record. Look at the number of fights he's won as underdog over the last 5 years. It's insane. I mean, if you beat Pascal, you are a world-class top light heavyweight. Only the elite of the division beats Jean Pascal. So we're going to find out if Buatsi's elite. If Buatsi's elite, he's going to win the fight. If Buatsi's not elite, Pascal's going to win the fight. And that's a great fight. And I've always been able to work with Frank and George and the crew at Queensberry. It's we go back a long way, and we've had a number of laughs over the years. So it's always a pleasure to work with them.
Is that kind of the current situation for you at the moment, in that you work with a lot of other major promoters to bring these big fights to fruition? Because as you said, there's no platform at the moment for you personally.
Yes, and also there are situations. So, I'm an American promoter, but I knew that there was some value in America, some value in Canada, and I knew that Eddie wasn't the only game in town when there's BET and Sky. I'm not a stupid man. I put together the Kambosos Haney fight as a huge event with mostly Australian and international money. Yeah, and Top Rank was a key partner. And had in the United States. So it's a matter of putting together revenue. It's not just like I have a platform, but it's much harder for me to do this. It's much harder for me to compete. I'm not competing on an equal playing field. I mean, you're correct. It's harder, but it's not impossible. So it wasn't a huge risk for me because I knew that there were 3 broadcasters in the UK, BT, Sky, and DAZN, all who wanted to televise the fight, whether I had the rights or somebody else, right? So if I'm buying it at the right price, what was my risk? I didn't do anything. I laugh at the fact that people think that I did I did this business and had to put up money up front and everything else, and I did this to somehow screw with Eddie. It had nothing to do with that. It had to do with a really good fight, my ability to work with one of the participants, and can I make money on this? I didn't win the purse bid to lose money. So, I think the way we've put this together now, it's going to be available all over the world, and it'll be a huge exposure for Buatsi. He still gets the advantage of fighting on the UK, right? And I think it's a big event, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm planning on coming to that fight. I think that's a real good fight.
Well, you said it's not about beating Eddie, but was that a bonus, if you're honest?
Of course. Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's always fun to win a purse bid. It's always fun to, and look, it's especially fun when you're not as well capitalized and backed and supported as your your opposition, right? It's you sort of get a kick out of it when you're the little guy and you beat David beats Goliath in a purse bid, right?
Yeah.
But it's also a reminder to Goliath. Yeah, you're Goliath. You got more fucking money and you got more fucking power. But if you don't use it, someone's going to beat you. If you're not honest about it, if you don't put out your best foot forward, because you think you can bully people into submit. I mean, I'm really surprised I won it. I was pleased to win the bid.
Good stuff. Lou, it's been an absolute pleasure catching up. Let's make sure we do this every week going forward. We can't tantalize people with this brief reprisal and then go away again. So
and one thing I want to remind people: next week on the undercard of the Queensberry show, one of the chief support bouts is my boy Michael Magnesi against Anthony Kakachi. Sensational fight. Don't miss that fight. Watch that fight. I think it's a really, really good matchup. And who do you like in the main event?
I fancy Joyce to win. I think it'll be a tough fight and a grueling one, but I think Joyce can pull it out over the second half.
I'm a huge Joyce fan. I love him. I don't know. He's become one of my favorite fighters. He's slow as friggin' molasses, but he's so physically strong, and he fights pretty tenaciously, and he's just hard to beat. Like he's fun to watch. Joe Parker's a good fighter. That's a real good heavyweight fight. I mean, I'm actually really looking forward to that card.
Good stuff. Well, yeah, so am I. Let's do this again next week.
You got it. Have a good one.
Said it on camera now. I just want you to commit to it on camera.
All right, you got it.
I appreciate it.